let's take the pressure off purpose, because it's not what you do. It is not your work. It is not a career. It is not an output. Purpose is the core of who you are. It is the stardust that you came with. It is your essence. You already are it. And if our world didn't have this obsessive narrative with figuring out purpose, we would remember that every single human's purpose is to survive and be a human. No animal questions why they are here. They are here to survive and procreate, continue the species. We are here to survive and be. Be human, be what is true, be what is natural. But we've gotten so far away from that. And our world isn't as, I guess, obvious anymore, because so much of our survival needs are met. And we have endless choice. If we still lived in tribes in the jungle, no one would wake up questioning what their purpose is. You have to find food, you have to find shelter, or you have to maintain your shelter, take care of the other humans around you. But we're so disconnected. We're so segregated in our little secure bubbles, in our gated communities, in our, locked, ring enabled, store, home fronts. And the fact that we raise the question that we don't know what our purpose is as humans has caused such a challenge for so many people. As if they have to answer this question with this really succinct, oh, I am a writer. I am a doctor. I save lives. Writing is a means. Medicine is a means. I coach. Coaching is a means. But my purpose is not to coach. I am who I am, and that is my singular purpose. And I can describe it in more words. For example, I exist for clarity. My purpose is to exist, is to be clear and honest and help people find the clarity and honesty in their own lives. I'm adding the help others part. But if I chose not to help others, I would still be me. And what I care about is the truth and the heart of things. I care about the heart of the matter. I care about what is honest and true for our existence, for each person, because each person is so unique and different. I want to know what's true about that person. And so even if I didn't adopt the title of coach, or previously in my corporate life, I was in brand strategy and strategic planning, so I was a strategist, or had a whole bunch of other titles too. But all of my work often centered around understanding what matters to the parties here and how do we make that happen? What do people care about? And what I do now is figuring out what other humans care about, what matters to them, and how do we enable them to set up their life so that they live what actually matters to them, that they live the truth of who they are, that they can fearlessly be themselves. And the reason I say the title coach doesn't matter is because even if I had some other title, even if I was still working some corporate job, even if I was still in marketing, I would still spend my time asking people a lot of questions about themselves. I'd still want to know who they are and why they are. I'd still want to know what gave them that interest in, whatever passion that they have, why they have certain quirks that they have, what motivates them to get out of bed in the morning, what gets them so excited that they feel like a little kid again. I would still ask those questions. And in the realm of my work, I spent a lot of my time asking questions. That was actually what my job was, is to ask other people questions to understand what they cared about, so that in whatever job I was in, I could deliver that value to them in some way. But the heart of it is the same. It is getting super clear on what the essence of, or what the core, what the truth of this discussion is, of these people are, of our project is. Right now, I'm just channeling that same essence into coaching. And for every single one of you, you already are it. You already are like being you, living your purpose it, in the ways that you allow yourself to be. There are probably ways that we've all hid ourselves, masked ourselves, edited, code switched. And all of that gets us away from the truth of who we are, from our purpose. But if we stop questioning it so much, there's kind of two paths forward. You can either stop questioning it and just accept the fact that your purpose is to be you. And if you want a statement for your purpose, then it's about you understanding yourself so well that you can distill the essence of why you think you're here to a sentence or two. Like, my purpose is clarity. My purpose is truth. My purpose is now to, as I do it for myself, because I spent the first 30 plus years of my life just focused on trying to figure that out for me and trying to ensure that my life was aligned to those truths. I now just, in addition, want to help other people do that. So I add the help other people find clarity and truth. That, in short, that's what I exist for. And I end up talking to strangers in the street for like hours at a time about their deepest like dreams and hopes for their lives, for the world. That happens on the regular. And that's not because I'm like trying to find business with like random people on the street. It's just because, again, that's who I am. And so one path forward is either you stop questioning what your purpose is and you just accept you as you are and you spend the effort trying to just understand yourself better. Or two, you actually try and like understand, like take on clarifying exercises to get at the heart of who you are if you want to answer this purpose question. But what I can tell you, I can give you a couple hints. It has been with you for as long as you have had like formative experiences. So likely going back to your teens, maybe even single digit years, elementary school, where you started to understand some really core things about life, where you started to interact with the world and you got feedback, where you started to figure out how you could survive and navigate this life successfully, and what worked for you as that unique individual with the skills that you had, with the knowledge that you had, with the sensibilities that you had to navigate the world. So it usually sits in that place of you learning how to survive and then eventually thrive by engaging with the world in a certain way. And I can trace my desire for clarity and truth back to before 5th grade. Because I understood by 5th grade, and the reason why I know that is that I had this insight in before I left elementary school, which was 5th grade, that I couldn't trust the adults around me. I could trust them to provide shelter and food, and I trusted my mom to care about my academic life, but I could not trust adults to guide me on any other aspect of life because I saw how misaligned their words and actions were. And I saw how they would say one thing in one setting and say something different in another. And I saw how plainly my mom lived in a way that I was like, I don't want this life. It is so filled with stress and anxiety and deep, like, emotional immaturity. And I didn't have the words for it at 10 years old, but I recognized that something was not right about this experience I was having with my mom. And if I couldn't trust her to guide me because she was a single parent, then I had to trust myself. That there's no one else to trust because I was an only child too. And the other adults around me, like her friends, I was like, you're even more questionable. And so I understood that understanding the truth of things was going to be a key to I didn't think about it in terms of success. I thought about it in terms of survival. That I had no other choice than to really understand what was happening in the world around me so that I could navigate it better. And because I felt like I had to navigate it emotionally and socially, like by myself, that if I did not know what was true, then I wouldn't have a baseline from which to assess my decisions. And I remember, but even before that, I don't have this memory, but my grandma told me that one time when I was 3, I walked upstairs to one of her rooms, and her some relative, I don't remember who it was, but some relative was staying with them at the time, and they were trying to like rearrange clothes and reorganize like all their stuff, and everything was like, out on the floor, and she was trying to kind of put things back in the closets. And they told this story so many times over. And she said, I went upstairs and I looked around this room and I said, you're not going to be able to put all these clothes back in this drawer or in this closet. You need another closet, or you need another dresser. In Chinese, it's called guizu. So a guizu could be like a dresser or a closet. But essentially, I like took one look at whatever was happening and was like, this is not going to work. You need something else. And I remember them telling me that they all looked around and they're like, she's right. And I was 3. And so even though I don't have that memory, like other people saw that in me, that I just saw things really clearly, that I cared about the truth of the matter, that I would just plainly state things that were obvious to me and maybe not to other people, but once I did, they would be like, oh, like that's really obvious. But the way my brain works, I like connecting a bunch of disparate dots and trying to make sense of them. I like to piece together my environment and try to like calibrate a couple things. And I don't know if at 3 I thought about it as survival, but it was just how I was. And of course, going forward, I couldn't have plotted like, oh, this is the essence of who I am, and I'm going to follow it through all the way, to now. But looking back, I see it so clearly from how I evaluated the friendships that I was in and who I could trust and not trust, from picking the career paths that I ended up choosing. I was a massive basketball fan, and I was like, all I want to do is work in basketball. And like the NBA was my dream job. Like I just wanted to get to the NBA for 12 years, from 10 to 22. I was like, that's all I want, get to the NBA. Like how clearly I saw like things in my life, decisions that I made about places to move to, like how convicted I was in the choices that I made, to even the jobs that I ended up taking, even within sports. They were all around strategy, like I said. And brand strategy in particular is about understanding the essence of a company. It's like, who are you? What do you stand for? Why do you exist? What is your value? Those all have to do with the truth and the core of what we were trying to do. Strategy is asking, or the exercise of the role of strategists is to look at a problem, understand the context in which this problem exists, understand the dependencies, understand the constraints, and figure out what is the right solution for this circumstance that achieves our objective, right? But you have to understand like the core elements. And so looking at everything that I've done now through coaching, my job is to see people as clearly as I can, is to help them get to the truth of who they are. And that has been a thread since at least as far back as I was 3. And so that's why I say you can either drop the subject altogether of trying to figure out purpose, because you already are it. But if it would help you, and just allow yourself to be. But if it would help you in some way, if you really think clarifying some few sentence statement to understand why you exist, to understand the core of who you are, to understand what drives you as a human, you can join our weekly calls. They're currently free. Sorry, they're always free. They're currently weekly because they're free. The cadence may change, but come and talk about it. Because on those calls, essentially, we talk about two things: clarifying your life, whether it's purpose, your goals, what you want, and how you can be more truly you, more fearlessly you, and what is getting in the way. What is the inner dialogue? What is the shit that's getting in the way of you allowing yourself to simply be as you are, to believe in your worth, to believe in your value, to trust yourself, to love yourself? So join us. I'd love to meet you. And it's a group of us that get together, and the whole point of it is more of us to get together to talk about a life that matters, a life of meaning that isn't rooted in more consumption, convenience, accumulation, making money solely. It's about living a good life, which entails money, of course, but it's about how do we live as meaningfully and purposefully as possible. So if you would like to join us, if you'd like some help in figuring out an articulation of your purpose, please join us.